In the next few minutes, Wang, you're going to hear a story that will touch your heart in a way you never imagined. This is the story of Vincent Harlow, one of the wealthiest and most feared men in Manhattan and New York, a man who built a multi-million-dollar empire, but lost his humanity along the way. One rainy October night, a desperate little girl asking for help. One sentence, just one sentence from the mouth of that soaked child, was enough to shatter all the walls Vincent had built around his heart for decades. What did she say? Why did those words haunt him for so long? Stay until the end, because what you're about to discover will change the way you see life. This story begins in one of the darkest moments in the life of a powerful man, and of a child who had nothing left to lose. The rain was pounding violently on the streets of Manhattan that Tuesday evening in October 2023. The drops hammered against the asphalt as if the sky itself was unloading all its fury on the city that never sleeps. Vincent Harlow watched it all from inside his black Mercedes Maybach S-Class, completely insulated from the outside world by bulletproof glass and air conditioning that kept the temperature at a perfect 70 degrees. At 52, Vincent had achieved everything a man could possibly desire in material terms. Owner of an investment firm he had built from scratch 25 years earlier and turned into one of the most profitable in New York, he controlled a personal fortune estimated at $340 million. His Park Avenue penthouse alone was worth $28 million. His cars, watches, and investments could sustain entire families for generations, but there was a price for all that success. Vincent Harlow had become exactly the kind of man he himself would have despised if he weren't the one living it. Cold, calculating, incapable of feeling genuine empathy for another human being. His 3 marriages had all ended in bitter divorces. His 2 grown children barely spoke to him. His employees feared him more than they respected him. And Vincent simply didn't care. To him, feelings were weaknesses. Emotions were obstacles. And people were just pieces on a massive chessboard where he always needed to deliver checkmate. That particular night, Vincent was returning from a business dinner at one of Midtown Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants. He had just closed a $45 million deal while savoring a sophisticated entree that cost more than many families spent on food in an entire month. Another day, another few million. The routine of a man for whom money had long since lost any real meaning. "Mr. Harlow, there's a traffic jam on Fifth Avenue because of an accident," said Derek, his personal driver of 8 years. "I'll take the alternate route through Madison Avenue." Vincent didn't even answer. His eyes were glued to his iPad, reviewing his firm's latest quarterly numbers. Always the numbers. Numbers never lied. Numbers never disappointed him. Numbers never abandoned him. The car glided through Manhattan's rain-slicked streets when something caught Derek's eye. He instinctively slowed down, even knowing his boss hated delays. "Sir, there's a child up ahead," Derek said, his voice weighted with genuine concern. Vincent looked up from his iPad for the first time in 20 minutes, annoyed at the interruption. And then he saw her, a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old, completely drenched in the relentless downpour. Her clothes, a faded blue dress and a coat far too thin for October's chill, clung to her frail body. Her dark brown hair stuck to her pale face. She was barefoot. Her small feet splashed through freezing puddles as she staggered along, as if she had no idea where to go. The girl looked desperately at every passing car. Her arms lifted in pleading each time a vehicle approached. Her mouth moved and screaming words lost in the roar of the storm and traffic. "My God," Derek murmured. "That child is asking for help." "We can't just keep driving," Vincent cut him off, his voice as cold as the wind howling outside. "But sir, she's just a child. It's pouring rain and—" "I said keep driving, Derek. This isn't our problem." Derek glanced at the rearview mirror, his eyes meeting Vincent's. For a brief moment, he considered disobeying, but he knew his employer. He knew the consequences of defying Vincent Harlow. With a heavy heart, Derek pressed the accelerator. That's when it happened. The girl saw the approaching Mercedes Maybach. Her eyes, even through the rain and darkness, locked on the luxury car as if it were her last hope. She ran toward it, her bare feet splashing dirty water with every step. She reached the rear window where Vincent sat. Her small, trembling hands pounded against the bulletproof glass. Her face pressed against it, leaving a smudge of moisture and despair. And then she screamed. Even through soundproof glass, Even through all the layers of luxury and isolation separating that wealthy man from that desperate child, the words pierced through, loud and clear, desperate and real. Please, my little sister is going to die. Please, someone help me. She's only 3 years old. She can't breathe anymore, please. Vincent felt something strange in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years, maybe decades. A tightening, a discomfort, something that could almost be mistaken for conscience? But he shoved that feeling deep down, into the place where he buried every inconvenient emotion. Derek, speed up, he ordered, turning his face away so he wouldn't have to look at the girl. Mr. Harlow, I really think we should… Faster. Vincent's shout echoed inside the car. Derek flinched, pressed harder on the gas, and the Mercedes Maybach pulled away, leaving behind a soaked, desperate, and utterly alone little girl in the rain. Vincent turned his eyes back to the iPad, determined to erase what had just happened. Just another street kid. New York was full of them. Not his problem. He paid his taxes. He donated to charity, or rather, his accounting team donated in his name for tax breaks. He was already doing his part. But something was different. For the first time in many years, Vincent Harlow found himself unable to focus on the numbers in front of him. The girl's words echoed in his head. My little sister is going to die. She's only 3 years old. She can't breathe. Vincent shook his head, as if he could physically drive those thoughts away. But they persisted, relentless, unyielding. 15 minutes later, the Mercedes Maybach pulled up to Vincent's building, one of the most prestigious addresses in Manhattan. Derek opened the door and Vincent stepped out into the covered entrance, shielded from the unrelenting rain. Good night, Mr. Harlow, Derek said, his voice colder than usual. Vincent didn't answer. He strode through the Italian marble lobby, gave a curt nod to the night doorman, Thomas Guy, who had worked there for 15 years and whose daughter was fighting a serious illness, a fact Vincent knew nothing about, and entered the private elevator that opened directly into his penthouse. The doors closed. Vincent stood alone with his reflection in the mirrored walls. And for the first time in years, he truly looked at himself. A man in a $3,000 suit, an Italian silk tie, custom-made shoes, a watch worth more than most people earned in a year. But when he looked into his own eyes, Vincent saw something that unsettled him deeply. Emptiness. Complete and absolute emptiness. The elevator doors opened directly into his penthouse. 10,000 square feet of immaculate luxury, imported marble floors, artwork worth millions hanging on the walls, furniture from European designers whose names most people couldn't even pronounce, a panoramic view of Manhattan that left visitors breathless, and silence. Always that deafening silence. Vincent tossed his keys onto the mahogany console at the entrance. He didn't bother turning on all the lights. He went straight to the bar in his living room, poured himself a 50-year-old scotch, a bottle he had bought at auction for $120,000, and dropped into his imported leather armchair. He drank, tried to focus on the day's numbers, tried to plan the next meeting, tried to do anything to push out the image of that drenched little girl in the rain, but it was useless. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her, those desperate eyes, those bare feet, that voice crying for help that never came. My little sister is going to die. Vincent drank more whiskey, then another glass, and another, but not even the most expensive alcohol in the world could drown out those words. For the first time in decades, Vincent Harlow stayed up all night. Not because of business, not because of money, but because of 4 words a desperate child had screamed in the rain. Words that refused to leave his mind. Words that, though he didn't know it yet, were about to change his life forever. Vincent woke up the next morning with a pounding headache and a bitter taste in his mouth that had nothing to do with the expensive whiskey he'd downed the night before. It was 6 a.m. on Wednesday, and for the first time in years, he couldn't follow his military-precise morning routine. Normally, Vincent would be up at 5:30, in the private gym of his building by 5:45, in the shower at 6:30, and at his desk promptly at 7. But that morning, he just lay there staring at the ceiling of his bedroom with its Austrian crystal chandelier worth more than an entire house in many New York neighborhoods. The image of the little girl in the rain was still there, persistent, relentless, like a stain he couldn't scrub off his conscience. My little sister is going to die. Vincent sat up abruptly, as if physical movement could shake the thought loose. He took a cold shower, put on one of his custom-tailored suits. This one cost $4,500, and went down to the lobby where Derek was already waiting with the car. "Good morning, Mr. Harlow," Derek said, his voice professional, though still carrying that trace of disappointment from the night before. Vincent only nodded and got in. The drive to his office in the financial district was silent. Vincent tried to focus on his emails, but his hands trembled slightly. He couldn't remember the last time he had felt this way. Nervous, uneasy, almost guilty? No, Vincent Harlow didn't feel guilt. Guilt was for the weak, for people who lacked the strength to do what needed to be done in this ruthless world. So why wouldn't those words leave his head? The car stopped in front of the 40-story mirrored tower where Vincent's firm occupied the entire top floor. 13,000 square feet of corporate luxury, with sweeping views of Manhattan. Mr. Harlow, his executive assistant, Margaret, a sharp 55-year-old woman who had worked for him for 12 years, greeted him as soon as he stepped out of the elevator. "Your 8 o'clock meeting has been rescheduled. Mr. Pemberton called out. He's stuck in traffic. And there's a stack of contracts waiting for your signature." "Coffee, black now," Vincent said without looking at her, heading straight for his office. Margaret frowned. She knew her boss well enough to know when something was off. And something was definitely off. Vincent shut the glass door of his office and dropped into his $17,000 imported leather chair. He powered on his computer and tried to bury himself in the numbers that had always been his sanctuary. But he couldn't. Every time he blinked, he saw that little girl. Those bare feet. That desperate face pressed against the car window. "Damn it," he muttered, slamming his fist on the solid mahogany desk. Margaret entered with the coffee, setting the porcelain cup gently onto its saucer. She was about to leave when Vincent's voice stopped her. "Margaret," he said, his tone strangely hesitant. "You have kids, don't you?" She froze, turning slowly. In 12 years of working for Vincent Harlow, he had never, absolutely never, asked a personal question. "Yes, sir. 2, a 23-year-old daughter and a 19-year-old son." "And when they were little," Vincent continued, still staring out the window, "did you worry about them?" Margaret blinked. The question was so out of character that it took her a moment to process. "Of course, Mr. Harlow. Mothers always worry about their children. It's natural." Vincent finally looked at her, and Margaret saw something in his eyes she had never seen before. Something that looked a lot like vulnerability. "And if you needed help?" he asked. "If your children were in danger and you needed help, what would you do?" "I would do anything," Margaret said without hesitation. "I'd beg, I'd scream. I'd knock on every door until someone listened. There's nothing, absolutely nothing, a mother wouldn't do to save her children." Vincent stayed silent for a long moment. "You may go," he said at last, his voice back to its usual cold, professional tone. Margaret left, unsettled. Something had happened to Vincent Harlow. She didn't know what, but something had changed. Meanwhile, as Vincent wrestled with his inner demons in his luxury office, just 8 blocks away, a completely different story was unfolding. In an abandoned building near Houston Street, in a rundown area that stood in stark contrast to Manhattan's glittering wealth, 2 children were fighting to survive. The girl from the night before was Sophie Mitchell, 8 years old, dark brown hair that had once been well cared for, now tangled and filthy, green eyes that once sparkled with childish joy, now weighed down by burdens no child should bear. And in Sophie's arms, trembling under a thin, torn blanket, was Emma Mitchell, 3 years old, Sophie's little sister, the only family she had left in this cruel world. Emma was sick, very sick. Her breathing was shallow and uneven, her skin pale, almost gray, her forehead burned with fever. She coughed, a deep, wet cough that made her tiny body convulse in pain. "Shh, Emma," Sophie whispered, rocking her gently. "It's going to be okay. I promise. It's going to be okay." But Sophie knew she was lying. Emma was getting worse. With every hour, her breathing grew more labored. Her fever climbed higher, and Sophie had no money for a doctor, no proper food, nothing but her skinny arms and her desperate determination to keep her little sister alive. How had 2 small children ended up alone on the streets of New York? The story of Sophie and Emma Mitchell was a tragedy that played out in different forms across the city every single day. Their mother, Sarah Mitchell, had been a hard-working woman, a waitress who worked 2 jobs to raise her daughters on her own. The girl's father had left when Emma was still in Sarah's belly. One day he just disappeared, leaving behind nothing but debt and a broken heart. Sarah fought. God knows she fought. She worked 16-hour days, sometimes longer. She barely saw her daughters, but every night she made sure to kiss them goodnight, no matter how exhausted she was. "You are my world," she always told Sophie and Emma. "Mommy loves you more than anything in this life." But 3 months ago, everything changed. Sarah was walking home after her night shift when a drunk driver struck her at the corner of Broadway and Canal Street. She died instantly. She was only 29. Sophie had been at school when the social worker arrived. She remembered every detail of that day: the gray suit, the serious face, the words that shattered her world. "Your mother is gone, sweetheart. I'm so sorry." The girls were placed in a temporary shelter while the system searched for relatives, but there were none. Sarah's mother had died years earlier. No uncles, no aunts, no grandparents, nobody. And then came the talk of separating the sisters. Sophie overheard the adults. They said it was easier to place children individually than as siblings. They said Emma, being younger and with no visible trauma, would have better chances alone. They said Sophie, at 8 years old and clearly scarred by her mother's death, would be harder to place. They said they would split them up. Sophie didn't let it happen. The night before the transfer, she grabbed Emma, who barely understood what was happening, and ran. She was only 8, but she had the fierce determination of someone far older. She had $53 saved from the money her mom occasionally gave her. She had a thin coat. She had a backpack with a few clothes. And she had her sister. That was all she needed, or so she thought. That was 6 weeks ago. The $53 lasted 4 days. Sophie bought food, apples, bread, little cartons of milk for Emma. But the money vanished quickly. New York was expensive. Too expensive. They slept in subway stations, in alleys, in abandoned buildings. Sophie learned fast how to hide, how to stay invisible, how to shield Emma from dangerous eyes and cruel hands. She begged, collected cans for change. Sometimes kind strangers gave her a few dollars. Most of the time, people just walked past as if she didn't exist. And then, 3 days ago, Emma started coughing. At first, Sophie thought it was just a cold, but it got worse. The fever came. Her breathing grew harder. Emma stopped eating. Sophie panicked. That's why she was on the street that rainy night. She needed help. She needed anyone who cared enough to save her sister. She had stopped dozens of cars. She had begged dozens of people. And all of them had kept walking. Until that black car. That luxury car. That man in the expensive suit who looked at her with empty eyes and told his driver to speed away. Now sitting in that abandoned building, cradling feverish Emma, Sophie felt despair consuming her. "Mommy," Emma whimpered in her feverish haze. "I want Mommy." "I know, baby," Sophie whispered, tears streaking down her dirty face. "I want her too. I want her too." Emma coughed violently, her tiny body racked with pain. When it passed, blood stained her lips. Sophie's heart stopped. Blood. No, 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 no. "Someone help me!" Sophie screamed into the empty walls of the abandoned building. "Please, my sister is dying!" But no one heard. No one came. Sophie was completely alone. Or so she thought. Because at that exact moment, just 8 blocks away, Vincent Harlow was staring out the window of his office, unable to work, unable to think about anything except a little girl, soaked in rain, screaming for help. And something inside him, something he had buried so deep he thought it was long dead, was beginning to stir. Vincent couldn't work that day. For the first time in 25 years running his investment firm, he canceled all his meetings. Margaret was shocked when he left the office at 2 in the afternoon, something that had simply never happened. "Mr. Harlow, are you all right?" she asked, genuinely concerned. "I'm fine," Vincent lied. "I just need to take care of a few things." He didn't know what he was doing. It made no sense. But something was pulling him back to that street, to the place where he had seen the girl the night before. "Derek," Vincent said as he got into the car. Go back to Madison Avenue. Exactly where we were last night around 9:30. Derek looked in the rearview mirror, surprised. Sir, you heard me. Go. The driver obeyed, but his heart sped up. Maybe, just maybe, his boss had a conscience after all. 15 minutes later, the Mercedes Maybach stopped in the exact spot it had the night before. Vincent got out, something he rarely did. He always went from point A to point B without ever actually setting foot on New York streets. But there he was, standing on the sidewalk in his $4,000 suit and Italian shoes, scanning the area as if searching for something. For someone. The girl wasn't there. Of course she wasn't. Why would she be? She had probably already died of hypothermia. Or her sister had, or both. And it would be his fault. Vincent felt a tightness in his chest. Something he hadn't felt in so long it took a moment to recognize it. Remorse. Mr. Harlow? Derek called from the car window. Everything all right? Stay here, Vincent ordered. I'm going to take a walk. Sir, this isn't exactly the safest neighborhood to... I said stay here. Derek went quiet. Vincent started walking. He had no idea where he was going. He just walked, eyes sweeping over every face, every shadow, searching for a girl in a faded blue dress with bare feet. He passed homeless people wrapped in filthy blankets. He passed men begging for change. He passed women with empty eyes selling their bodies on street corners. Vincent had always ignored these people. To him they were invisible, a part of the urban landscape he chose not to see. But now, for the first time, he truly saw them. And what he saw shook him. These were people. Human beings. With stories. With pain. With dreams that had been crushed by the merciless grind of the city. He helped shape with investments in gentrification and real estate development that pushed the poor farther and farther away. Vincent stopped in front of a filthy alley. Trash was piled up. The smell was awful. Then he noticed movement. An elderly woman, maybe 70 done, was rummaging through the garbage for food. Excuse me, Vincent heard himself say. The woman turned down, startled. When she saw the man in the expensive suit, she recoiled, thinking he would yell at her or call her a bum, like so many others did. Have you seen a little girl around here? Vincent asked, his voice oddly gentle. About 7 or 8. Brown hair. Blue dress. She was with a smaller child. A girl, maybe 3 years old? The elderly woman studied him with wary eyes. Why do you want to know? I need to find her. I need to help her. The woman let out a bitter laugh. Help? Men like you don't help people like us. Men like you pretend we don't exist. The words hit Vincent like a punch to the gut because they were true. Absolutely true. You're right, Vincent admitted, surprising both the woman and himself. But I have to find her, please. If you've seen anything. The woman hesitated, then sighed. There are 2 kids in an abandoned building on Houston Street, near the corner with Elizabeth. Red brick place, half burned out. I don't know if they're the girls you're looking for, but they're the only kids alone around here that I know of. Vincent was already running before he could even thank her. He sprinted back to the car, his heart pounding for a reason that had nothing to do with the exertion. Derek? Houston and Elizabeth, now. Derek hit the gas without asking questions. 5 minutes later, they pulled up in front of a decaying building. Windows were shattered or boarded up. Graffiti covered the walls. It was the sort of place Vincent would normally order demolished to make room for a luxury condo. Sir, I should go in with you, Derek said, worried about his boss's safety. No, Vincent said, already stepping out. Stay here. Call 911. Tell them there may be a child in need of emergency medical care at this address. Vincent entered the building. The stench of mold and urine hit him immediately. Needles littered the floor. Empty bottles. Evidence that people use the place as a refuge or a hideout. Hello? He called E, his voice echoing through the emptiness. Is anyone here? Silence. Vincent climbed the stairs carefully, avoiding steps that looked ready to give way. 2nd floor. 3rd floor. And then he heard it, crying. Soft. Desperate. He followed the sound to a room at the back of the 3rd floor. The door was ajar. Vincent pushed it open slowly. And there they were. Sophie sat in the corner, cradling Emma in her arms. The younger girl was clearly very sick. Her breathing was shallow and labored. Her skin was frighteningly pale. Sophie looked up as Vincent entered. For a second, her eyes widened in fear. She recognized the man from the black car, the man who had ignored her. She pulled Emma closer, protective even in her extreme weakness. "No," she cried, her voice hoarse. "You're not taking us. You're not taking my sister. I'd rather die." Vincent felt his heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. He slowly knelt on the filthy floor, bringing himself to the girl's eye level, and for the first time in decades, Vincent Harlow, the man who had built an empire by being ruthless and emotionless, felt tears burn in his eyes. "I'm not going to separate you," he said, his voice breaking. "I promise. I won't separate you." "You lied yesterday," Sophie shouted, tears streaming down her dirty face. "I begged you for help and you didn't stop. My sister is dying because of you." Each word was a blade slicing Vincent's soul. "You're right," he said, and the tears finally fell. "You're absolutely right. I was a coward. I was selfish. I was monstrous. But I'm here now, and I swear on everything that's sacred, I'm going to save your sister. Please, let me help." Sophie studied him. She was just a child, but there was an ancient wisdom in her eyes, a wisdom born of suffering and loss. She looked at Emma, barely conscious. She saw the dried blood on her sister's lips. She heard her weakening breath, and she knew she had no choice. "All right," she whispered, "but if you try to separate us, I'll run again, and you won't find me next time." "I won't separate you," Vincent repeated, more firmly now. "That's a promise." He stood and gently, so gently, lifted Emma from Sophie's arms. The little girl was far too light, frighteningly light. He could feel every bone in her back through the thin dress. "Come on," he said to Sophie. "An ambulance is on the way. We're taking your sister to the hospital." Sophie stood on trembling legs. She was almost as weak as Emma. When was the last time this child had eaten? Vincent couldn't believe what he was doing. He, who had always avoided any kind of emotional involvement, was now carrying a sick child in his arms and promising to care for 2 orphans. But for the first time in decades, Vincent felt something other than emptiness. He felt purpose. They went down the stairs carefully. Derek had parked right in front of the building and had already called the ambulance. "My God," Derek murmured when he saw the children. He immediately took off his coat and draped it over Sophie's shoulders. The ambulance arrived with sirens blaring. Paramedics jumped out, moving with professional efficiency. "She's running a high fever, shallow breathing, and there's blood in her mouth," Vincent reported quickly as he laid Emma gently on the gurney. "I don't know how long she's been sick." 3 days, Sophie said in a small voice. "She started coughing 3 days ago." The paramedics exchanged worried looks. One of them, a woman in her 30s named Lisa, knelt beside Sophie. "And you, sweetheart? When was the last time you ate?" Sophie thought, "Yesterday morning. I think I found half a bagel in the trash near a bakery." Lisa closed her eyes for a second, mastering her emotions. Then she looked at her partner. "Take them both. I'll check the older one on the way." "No!" Sophie cried, clutching the gurney where Emma lay. "I'm going with my sister." "You're not going to separate us." "No one is separating them," Vincent said firmly. Then he looked at the paramedics. "I'm going with them. I'll ride in the same vehicle." Lisa looked at the man in the expensive suit, saw the dried tear tracks on his face, and nodded. "Let's go. We don't have time to lose." Vincent climbed into the ambulance with the girls. For the first time in his privileged life, he was in the back of an ambulance, holding the hand of a frightened child while her little sister fought for her life inches away. And as the ambulance cut through Manhattan traffic with the sirens wailing, Vincent Harlow did something he hadn't done since he was a boy. He prayed. "Please, God," he whispered, squeezing Sophie's dirty hand. "I know I have no right to ask for anything. I know I've wasted my life being selfish and cruel. But these girls, they don't deserve this. Please, save her life, please." Sophie looked at the rich man and saw something that surprised her. She saw sincerity. She saw remorse. She saw humanity. "What's your name?" she asked softly. "Vincent," he answered. "Vincent Harlow." "Thank you, Mr. Harlow," Sophie whispered. "Thank you for coming back." Vincent squeezed her hand tighter. "Just call me Vincent, and you don't need to thank me. I should have stopped yesterday. This should never have happened." The ambulance swerved around a corner. Lisa was working feverishly on Emma. fitting an oxygen mask, checking her vitals, threading an IV into her tiny vein. "Stay with us, little one," Lisa murmured. "Stay with us. We're almost there." Vincent looked at Emma, the small child he had never met but now felt crushingly responsible for, and made a silent promise. If she survived, he would spend the rest of his life making up for the harm he'd done. If she survived, the ambulance screeched to a stop in front of the ER. The back doors flew open. Doctors and nurses were already waiting. "Female, 3 years old, high fever, respiratory compromise, likely pneumonia," Lisa reported as they transferred Emma to a hospital gurney. "Room 3, move," a doctor shouted. They rushed Emma through the automatic doors. Sophie tried to follow, but a nurse gently held her back. "Sweetheart, you have to let the doctors work." "No! Emma! Emma!" Sophie screamed, struggling to break free. Vincent scooped her up, holding her as she thrashed and cried. "They're going to save her," he said with a conviction he wasn't sure he truly felt. "They're going to save her, Sophie. I promise." Sophie buried her face in Vincent's shoulder and cried. She cried for her dead mother. She cried for her sick little sister. She cried for all the cold, hungry nights. She cried for everything. And Vincent, the man who had spent decades building walls around his heart, just held her and let her cry. Because it was the only thing he could do, the only right thing he had done in a very, very long time. The next 3 hours were the longest of Vincent Harlow's life. He sat on an uncomfortable plastic chair in the ER waiting room, completely surreal for a man used to VIP lounges and private suites. Sophie was beside him, curled against him, her small body shuddering now and then with silent sobs. Vincent had taken off his $4,000 jacket and draped it over the girl's shoulders. His silk tie was creased. His white shirt was stained with grime from when he carried Emma. His custom Italian shoes were scuffed and dirty, and he didn't care one bit. Around them, the waiting room was packed. People coughing, children crying, the smell of disinfectant mixed with something less pleasant, fluorescent lights flickering. It was a world completely different from the one Vincent knew. "Mr. Harlow?" A nurse called Ita, approaching with a clipboard. She was a black woman in her 40s with tired but kind eyes. Her badge read Janet Williams, head nurse. "I need to ask a few questions about the child you brought in." Vincent nodded, trying not to wake Sophie, who had finally fallen asleep from exhaustion against him. "What's the child's full name?" Janet asked, and pen poised. "Emma Mitchell," Vincent answered. "And this is Sophie Mitchell, her sister." "Your relationship to the children?" Vincent hesitated. "I don't have one. I found them." Janet studied him for a long moment, her eyes taking in the expensive suit, the watch that probably cost more than her annual salary, then back to the sleeping girl against his side. "Found them?" She echoed out, skeptical. "It's complicated," Vincent said. And then, for the first time in his life, he told the unvarnished truth. He told her about the rainy night before, about ignoring Sophie's plea for help, about being unable to forget, about going back to search for them, about finding them in that abandoned building. Janet listened in silence. When he finished, she let out a long breath. "Well, Mr. Harlow, I'll be honest with you. The situation is serious. Emma has acute bacterial pneumonia, likely made worse by severe malnutrition and prolonged exposure to the cold. She's stable for now, but the next 24 hours are critical." Vincent's stomach twisted. Is she going to make it?" "We're doing everything we can," Janet replied, and Vincent hated the evasiveness even while knowing she couldn't promise anything. "She's on broad-spectrum IV antibiotics, fluids for dehydration and oxygen. If she responds well over the next few hours, her chances improve significantly." "And Sophie?" Vincent asked, glancing at the sleeping girl. "She's malnourished and dehydrated too, but not as severely as her sister. I'll have someone examine her and get her something to eat." "But Mr. Harlow, there's another matter." Vincent knew what was coming. "Child Protective Services," he said. "Not a question, a statement." Janet nodded. "I'm legally required to notify them when we have unaccompanied minors in danger. I've already called. A social worker is on the way." "They're going to separate the girls," Vincent said, his voice suddenly cold. "They'll place them in different homes." "Probably," Janet admitted. "It's hard to find placements willing to take siblings, especially when one needs intensive medical care." "No," Vincent said firmly, surprising the nurse and himself. I'm not going to let that happen. Mr. Harlow, I'm going to take care of them. Both of them. Janet blinked, clearly stunned. You understand what you're saying? These are traumatized children who lost their mother and spent weeks on the streets. They'll need medical care, therapy, stability, constant attention. I know, Vincent cut in. And I can provide all of that. I have resources. I have a home that's far too big for one person. I want to do this. For the first time in her 20-year career, Janet Williams was at a loss for words. She'd seen a lot working the ER of a public hospital in New York, but she'd never seen a millionaire volunteer to care for two orphaned or sick children he didn't even know. It isn't that simple, she said at last. There are legal processes, background checks, home evaluations. The social worker will need to. Then put me in touch with her, Vincent said. Now, today I'll do whatever it takes. Before Janet could respond, a voice spoke from behind them. Well, that's interesting. They both turned. A woman stood there, about 50, gray hair pulled into a bun, glasses on a chain, carrying a worn folder. She wore a brown blazer that had seen better days and the tired expression of someone who has witnessed too much human misery. I'm Patricia Reynolds in Child Protective Services, she said, extending a hand to Vincent. And I heard part of your conversation. You are Vincent Harlow, he replied, shaking her hand while careful not to wake Sophie. Patricia looked at the sleeping girl against him, then back at Vincent. Her seasoned eyes missed nothing, the expensive suit, the watch, but also the genuine worry on his face and the protective way he held the child. Mr. Harlow, I need to speak with you, privately. Vincent looked at Sophie, reluctant to leave her. I'll stay with her, Janet offered gently. Go. You need to sort this out. Reluctantly, Vincent moved Sophie carefully into another chair, tucking his jacket under her head as a pillow. The girl murmured something in her sleep but didn't wake. He followed Patricia into a small, empty consult room. As soon as the door closed, she got straight to the point. I'll be frank, Mr. Harlow. In 28 years in social services, I've seen a lot. I've seen well-meaning people give up when they realize how hard this is. I've seen people who want to save children like they're charity projects. And I've seen kids like Sophie and Emma separated because the system is broken and we're under-resourced. She paused, studying him. So I have to ask, why do you want to do this? Truly. Because if it's guilt or a momentary impulse or an attempt to feel better about yourself, I'd rather you be honest now. These girls have suffered enough. Vincent thought carefully before answering. He could lie. He could say all the right things. But something about this woman demanded honesty. You're right, he said finally. It is guilt. Last night, Sophie pounded on my car window begging for help. She told me her sister was dying, and I told my driver to speed up. I ignored her. I chose not to get involved because it was convenient for me. Patricia said nothing, just listened. I couldn't sleep all night, Vincent went on. Her words kept looping in my head. I built an empire by being ruthless, cold, not caring about anyone but myself. I have 2 adult children who hate me and they're right to. 3 ex-wives who would probably celebrate if I dropped dead tomorrow, and millions of dollars that mean absolutely nothing. He met Patricia's eyes. When I found those girls today, when I saw Emma near death and Sophie trying to protect her even while she was hungry and terrified, I saw what I'd become. I saw a monster. And for the first time in decades, I felt something other than emptiness. I felt shame. I felt remorse. And I felt purpose. Purpose, Patricia repeated. I've spent my entire life piling up money and power. For what? To die alone in an empty penthouse. These girls, they're giving me a chance to be something more than a selfish, wealthy man. A chance to actually matter in someone's life. And I know that's selfish in its own way, because I get something from it too. But I swear to you, I swear on everything sacred I will do right by them. Patricia was silent for a long moment. Then she sighed. Mr. Harlow, I appreciate your honesty, but you need to understand what you're offering to do. Sophie is 8 and just lost her mother. She spent weeks on the streets caring for a 3-year-old by herself. She's traumatized. She'll have nightmares, trust issues, emotional outbursts. Emma, if she survives, will need months of medical follow-up, possibly therapy as well. These are not easy children. I understand, Vincent said, and I have the resources to hire the best people, doctors, therapists, whatever they need. Money isn't everything, Patricia said firmly. They'll need time, patience, love, things you can't buy. Can you give them that? Vincent thought about all the times he had failed as a father, all the school plays he missed, all the birthdays he forgot, all the nights he chose work over his kids. I don't know, he admitted honestly. I failed miserably with my own children. But I want to try. I want to be better. And maybe these girls are my chance at redemption. Patricia studied him a moment longer, then opened her folder and pulled out some forms. I'll need full information. Legal name, address, employment, financial history, personal references. I'll run a complete background check. If there's anything, and I mean anything, in your past that could put these children at risk, it will come up. There's nothing criminal, Vincent said. I'm a ruthless businessman, but I've never broken the law. We'll see, Patricia said. Not harsh, not gentle, just professional. I'll also need to conduct a home visit, see where and how you live, assess whether it's suitable for children. My penthouse has 5 bedrooms, Vincent said. Use as many as you want. I'm not worried about size, Mr. Harlow. I'm worried about safety, emotional stability, and child readiness. A luxury penthouse can be overwhelming for a child who just spent weeks sleeping in abandoned buildings. Vincent hadn't considered that. There was so much he hadn't considered. Is there a process for this? He asked. Something I can do right now. First, I need to speak with Sophie, Patricia said. She's old enough to have a say. If she doesn't want to stay with you, this entire debate is moot. She barely knows me, Vincent said, a flicker of fear tightening his chest. Why would she trust me after I ignored her last night? Exactly, Patricia said. That's why I'll talk to her, hear what she wants. Because in the end, Mr. Harlow, this isn't about what you want. It isn't about your redemption or your purpose. It's about what's best for these 2 girls. And if I don't believe you're the best option, I will place them in separate homes today, no matter how much money you have. The steel in her voice made it clear she wasn't bluffing. I understand, Vincent said. And I respect that. Just, please, don't separate them. Sophie said she'd rather die than be separated from Emma. After everything they've been through, separating them would be cruel, Patricia finished. I know, and I do everything in my power to keep siblings together always. But you need to understand it isn't always possible. Sometimes there's no choice. There is a choice, Vincent insisted. Me. Let me be that choice. Before Patricia could answer, there was an urgent knock. Janet stepped in, face grave. Mr. Harlow, Sophie woke up and she's panicking. She's screaming for Emma and won't let anyone near her. You need to come. Now. Vincent was on his feet and running before the words fully sank in. He reached the waiting room to find Sophie in full meltdown, standing on a chair, clinging to his jacket like a shield, tears streaming down her face as she screamed. Where's Emma? What did you do to my sister? I want to see my sister. 2 nurses tried to calm her, but Sophie only shrank back more, nearly falling off the chair. Sophie! Vincent called, rushing to her. She looked at him, her eyes wild with panic. Then something shifted in her expression. Recognition, and maybe relief. Vincent, she said in a small and frightened voice. You came back. I came back, he said, stopping a few steps away so he wouldn't scare her more. I'm not going anywhere, Sophie. I promised I wouldn't leave you, remember? Where's Emma? Sophie asked, her voice breaking. They took Emma and I don't know where she is, and she must be so scared all alone, and Emma's with the doctors, Vincent explained gently. They're taking care of her, making her better, and as soon as it's safe, you'll get to see her. I promise. How do I know you're telling the truth? Sophie demanded, eyes brimming. How do I know they didn't take her away? That you're not going to separate us? Vincent glanced at Patricia, who was watching closely. The social worker gave a small nod. Sophie, Vincent said, and then did something he had never done in his life. He knelt, right there, in the middle of a public hospital waiting room, with his $4,000 suit touching the dirty floor. Vincent Harlow knelt before an 8-year-old girl. You have my word. I will do everything in my power to keep you and Emma together, and I will take care of both of you. If you let me? Sophie studied him with eyes far too old for her young face. "Why?" she asked simply. "Why do you want to help us now when you didn't yesterday?" And Vincent, for the first time in his life, spoke the deepest, most vulnerable truth he had ever said. "Because yesterday I was a coward. And today I want to be a better man. And you and Emma, you're giving me a chance to be that man. If you'll let me." Sophie slowly stepped down from the chair. She walked up to Vincent, where he's still kneeling, and studied him up close. Then, to everyone's surprise, she hugged him. And Vincent Harlow, the man who built an empire by being cold and emotionless, hugged that orphaned, frightened girl and cried. He cried for her. He cried for Emma. He cried for all the years he'd wasted being a monster. And he cried because, for the first time in decades, when he felt human again. 2 hours later, Vincent was sitting beside Emma's bed in the pediatric intensive care unit. Sophie was on the other side, holding her little sister's tiny hand, refusing to leave even for a second. Emma was hooked up to a maze of machines, tubes in her small arms, a heart monitor beeping steadily, an oxygen mask covering half her pale face. She looked so fragile, so small in that hospital bed, but she was alive, and the doctors said she was responding to the antibiotics. "She's a fighter," Dr. Chen had said, an Asian pediatrician with gentle eyes and steady hands. "A few more hours on the street and, well, you got her here in time. That's what matters." Vincent looked at the 3-year-old child he hadn't known until a few hours ago and felt something he never thought he'd feel again. Fatherly love. Not the distant, obligatory kind he'd felt for his own children, born more of duty than choice. Something real, something deep, an overwhelming urge to protect, to care for, to do anything to make sure this child never suffered another day in her life. "Mr. Harlow." Vincent looked up. Patricia Reynolds stood in the doorway, folder tucked under her arm. "May I speak with you outside for a moment?" Vincent glanced at Sophie, who immediately tensed. "I'm not going anywhere," he told the girl. "I'll be right out there where you can see me through the glass." "Okay." Sophie hesitated, then nodded. She didn't fully trust him yet, and he didn't blame her. Vincent stepped out, but stayed close enough for Sophie to keep him in sight through the glass wall. Patricia noticed and gave an approving nod. "I spoke at length with Sophie while you were handling the admission paperwork," Patricia began. "She told me about her mother, about being on their own, about running from the shelter because they were going to separate them. And," Vincent asked, and heart pounding, "she said she trusts you," Patricia said, and Vincent felt his chest tighten. "Not completely, not yet. But she said you came back. That you could have left after bringing them to the hospital, but you stayed. That when she woke up scared, you were there. For a child who's been abandoned by everyone, that means a lot." Vincent didn't know what to say. "I made some calls," Patricia went on. "I checked your background. You are who you say you are. No criminal record. Philanthropist, though mostly for tax purposes from what I can tell. 3 divorces, but no allegations of abuse or violence. Your ex-spouses don't have much nice to say, but they all agreed you were never violent or dangerous." She paused. "I also spoke with your driver, Derek. He was in the waiting room and confirmed your story about last night. He said you seemed different today, that he's never seen you like this." "I've never been like this," Vincent admitted. "The problem," Patricia said, "is that this isn't simple. You can't just decide to take in 2 children. There are processes, laws. Normally, even for temporary custody, we spend weeks or months on assessments." Vincent's heart sank. "So you'll separate them?" "I didn't say that," Patricia cut in. "I said it normally takes time. But this isn't a normal case. Sophie made it very clear she'd rather live on the streets with Emma than be separated, and I believe her. That child survived weeks on her own caring for a 3-year-old. She has a will I rarely see." Patricia sighed. "So I'm going to do something that could cost me my job if it goes wrong. I'm granting you emergency temporary custody of both girls, effective immediately." Vincent felt like he'd been punched. "Really?" "With strict condition," Patricia said firmly. "First, it's temporary. 30 days to start. During that time, I will make unannounced visits. I'll interview the girls separately. I'll evaluate everything, the home environment, your capability to care for them, your genuine commitment to their well-being." She met his eyes. "Second, you will hire a team. a child trauma therapist, a pediatric nurse at least until Emma is fully recovered, possibly a nanny experienced with traumatized children. Not because you need the help, though you do, but because the girls need professionals who understand what they've been through. Done, Vincent said without hesitation. Third year you will attend foster parent classes. Yes, that's a thing. And yes, you will go. Every week. No exceptions. Done. And fourth, Patricia said, her voice softening, you will love these girls. Not as a project, not as redemption, but as children who deserve a home, safety, and a family. Can you do that? Vincent looked through the glass at Sophie, still holding Emma's hand, softly singing to her. He looked at Emma, so small and fragile in the hospital bed. I already do, he said, surprised to realize it was true. I don't know when it happened. Maybe when Sophie hugged me. Maybe when I carried Emma out of that building. Or maybe when I heard Sophie scream last night and chose to ignore her. And that choice tore me up inside. But yes, I love them, and I will spend the rest of my life proving I deserve to be their father. Patricia studied him for a long moment. Then, for the first time, she smiled. Then let's make it happen, Mr. Harlow. She opened her folder and pulled out a stack of forms. Sign here, and here, and here. This grants you emergency temporary custody. Congratulations, you just became the father of 2 girls. Vincent took the pen with trembling hands and signed. Each signature felt monumental. Each initial felt like a commitment to a completely different life. When he finished, Patricia tucked the documents away. Emma will need to stay in the hospital at least 3 or 4 more days, she said. Use this time to prepare your home. Turn it into a place ready for kids. And, Mr. Harlow, put away the fragile, pricey things. Kids break stuff. That's normal. Vincent thought of his penthouse full of expensive art. Suddenly, none of it mattered. I'll handle it, he said. Patricia nodded and started to leave, then turned back. Mr. Harlow, I hope you understand what you've taken on. These girls will test you. Sophie especially. She will push boundaries because she's waiting for you to give up on her, like everyone else has. And when that happens, not if, when you need to stay. You need to prove you're different. Can you do that? I will, Vincent said with conviction. I won't give up on them. Ever. Patricia smiled again, genuinely this time. Then maybe you're exactly what these girls need after all. She left, and Vincent stood alone in the hallway. He looked through the glass at his daughters. His daughters. The word felt strange and wonderful all at once. He took a deep breath and went back into the room. Everything okay? Sophie asked immediately, eyes full of worry. Better than okay, Vincent said, sitting again beside the bed. Sophie, I have something to tell you. She tensed. Ms. Reynolds just gave me temporary custody of you both. That means, if you want, you and Emma will come live with me when she's discharged. Sophie stared at him, not fully processing. Live with you? Yes, in my apartment. You'll have your own room. Emma will have hers. I'm going to hire people to help, doctors, therapists, whoever you need. And I'm going to take care of you, if you want me to. And if I don't, Sophie asked, testing him. Then Ms. Reynolds will find somewhere else, Vincent said honestly. But she'll try to keep you together. I'll make sure of that, even if you don't stay with me. Sophie was quiet for a long time, looking between Vincent and Emma. Will you send us away? She finally asked, her voice small. If we're difficult. If we break things. If we make you mad. Vincent's heart cracked at how much fear this child carried. No, he said firmly. I won't. You could break everything in my apartment and I'd still want you to stay. You can yell at me, be mad at me, not like me, and I'll still be here. Because that's what parents do, Sophie. They stay no matter what. Do you promise? Sophie whispered, tears starting to fall. I promise, Vincent said, holding out his hand. Sophie looked at his hand for a moment. Then, instead of shaking it, she stood and hugged him again, hard, desperate. Okay, she whispered into his shoulder. I want to stay with you. We both do. Vincent hugged her back, tears burning his eyes. Then it's official, he said. You're mine now, and I'm yours. Right then, Emma stirred in the bed. Her small eyes blinked open, still hazy from meds and fever. Sophie? She called weakly. I'm here, baby. Sophie rushed back to the bedside. I'm right here. Emma looked at Sophie, then at Vincent. Who's he? She asked in her 3-year-old voice. Sophie looked at Vincent and then back at Emma. This is Vincent, Sophie said, and then added the words that changed everything. He's going to take care of us now. Like a daddy. Emma studied Vincent with wide, curious eyes. Hi, Daddy, she said simply, and then her eyes drifted closed as she fell back to sleep. Vincent went perfectly still. Daddy. She had called him Daddy. He looked at Sophie, tears in her eyes and a smile on her face. Is that okay? She asked. I shouldn't have said, it's more than okay, Vincent said, voice thick. It's perfect. And there, in that hospital room, with 2 orphaned girls he had known for less than a day, Vincent Harlow became something he had never truly been before. He became a father. A real father. And this time, he wasn't going to mess it up. This time, he was going to do it right. Later that night, after Sophie finally agreed to sleep on a fold-out cot the nurse brought in, Vincent sat in the chair beside Emma, watching both girls sleep. His phone buzzed. It was Derek. Mr. Harlow, I'm still downstairs. Do you want me to take you home? Vincent looked at the sleeping girls. No, Derek, I'm staying here tonight. But I need you to do something for me first thing tomorrow. Of course, sir. What do you need? Go to my penthouse. There's a list of interior designers on my desk. Call the first name, price doesn't matter, and tell them I need 2 bedrooms completely transformed into kids' rooms in 3 days. 1 for an 8-year-old girl, 1 for a 3-year-old. And tell them not to cut corners. I want the best of everything. There was a pause. Mr. Harlow, you're really doing this? Yes, Derek, I'm doing this. Then may I say I'm proud of you? Vincent smiled, surprised by the emotion in his driver's voice. You may. And thank you for not giving up on me last night when I told you to drive off. I almost crashed the car on purpose, Derek admitted, but I figured I'd get fired. You should have, Vincent said. Would have saved me a lot of anguish. After he hung up, Vincent looked back at the girls. Sophie clutched his jacket like a security blanket. Emma's breathing was easier now, color returning to her cheeks. And Vincent Harlow, the man who spent 52 years building walls around his heart, felt those walls finally crumble completely. He had a family again, and this time he wasn't going to lose it. The next 4 days in the hospital were an emotional roller coaster. Emma improved steadily, her fever finally breaking on the 3rd day. The coughing eased. Color returned to her face, and she started eating. First just broth and jello, then more solid foods. Every bite she took felt like a miracle to Vincent. Sophie was also thoroughly examined. Beyond malnutrition and dehydration, the doctors found signs of chronic stress and lack of sleep. But physically, she was surprisingly well, considering everything she'd been through. She's resilient, Dr. Chen told Vincent. But the psychological trauma will need attention. Those weeks on the street will leave marks. Make sure she gets therapy. Vincent had already hired the best child therapist in New York, a woman named Dr. Rachel Morrison, specialized in trauma and loss. She would come to the house 3 times a week to start. He also hired a pediatric nurse, Sarah Chen, no relation to the doctor, to stay with them full-time for the first month, and a woman named Rosa Martinez, who had worked with traumatized children for 20 years, to help with the girls and teach Vincent what he needed to know. Vincent wasn't just hiring help. He was building a full safety net around Sophie and Emma. During those days in the hospital, something remarkable happened. Vincent truly got to know his daughters. He discovered Sophie was incredibly smart. She read at the level of a 10 or 11-year-old, not 8. She loved math, especially number puzzles, and she had a dry, sarcastic sense of humor that caught him off guard and made him laugh. If you're so rich, Sophie said one afternoon, why does your hair look like you cut it yourself in the dark? Vincent instinctively touched his hair. I pay $400 for my haircuts. Then they robbed you, Sophie replied with absolute seriousness. Vincent laughed so loudly a nurse came to check if everything was okay. Emma, on the other hand, was pure sweetness. Even sick, she smiled at everyone. She called Vincent Daddy naturally, as if she'd always known him, and she had an adorable obsession with elephants. Daddy, have you ever seen a real elephant? She asked in her tiny voice. I have, Vincent answered. On a business trip to South Africa years ago. Emma's eyes widened. Really, are they big? Enormous. And majestic. Someday I'm going to see a real elephant, Emma declared with the absolute confidence of a 3-year-old. You will, Vincent promised. I'll take you to Africa to see elephants. When you're older. Sophie looked at him skeptically. You're just saying that grown-ups always say things they won't do. Vincent met her eyes. I'm not like other grown-ups, and Sophie. When I make a promise, I keep it, always. She still looked doubtful, but Vincent understood. Trust would take time, and he had all the time in the world. On the 4th day, Dr. Chen finally delivered the news everyone was waiting for. Emma can be discharged today, she announced with a smile. She responded beautifully to treatment. She'll still need antibiotics for another week and regular checkups, but she's strong enough to go home. Home. The word rang strangely for Vincent. His penthouse had always been a place where he slept and worked. Never truly a home. But now it was about to become exactly that. While they waited for the discharge paperwork, Vincent received a text from Derek. All set. You won't believe the transformation. His design team had worked around the clock for the last 4 days. Vincent had given them carte blanche and an unlimited budget. And knowing the designers he'd hired, the result would be extraordinary. Finally, at 3 p.m, Emma was officially released. A nurse wheeled her out, hospital protocol, with Sophie walking beside her, holding her little sister's hand. Vincent accompanied them to where Derek was waiting with the car. But when they saw the Mercedes Maybach, Sophie stopped abruptly. That's the car, she said, her voice tight. The car from the rainy night. Vincent realized the mistake immediately. Of course, that car represented rejection. It represented the most terrifying night of Sophie's life. He knelt beside her. You're right. It's the same car. The same night I made the worst mistake of my life. But you know what we're going to do. Sophie shook her head. We're going to make new memories in this car. Good memories. Memories of rides to school, to the park, to get ice cream. Until, when you look at this car, you won't remember that night anymore. You'll remember all the good that came after. Can we do that? Sophie thought for a moment. Then she slowly nodded. Derek opened the door and the 3 of them got in. Emma was dazzled by the luxurious interior. It's so soft, she squealed, sinking into the leather seat. Sophie, however, stayed tense the entire ride. Vincent noticed and gently took her hand. She didn't pull away. Where exactly are we going? Sophie asked as they drove up Park Avenue. Home, Vincent said. Our home. 20 minutes later, the car stopped in front of Vincent's building. The doorman, James Dare, who now knew all about the new residents, opened the door with a warm smile. Welcome, Mrs. Mitchell, he said formally, but with genuine kindness. It's an honor to have you here. Emma smiled shyly. Sophie just nodded, still processing everything. They stepped into the private elevator. When the doors opened directly into the penthouse, Sophie and Emma froze. What had once been a minimalist showroom of cold luxury had been transformed. The main living room was still elegant, but now there were colorful throw pillows on the sofa, a soft plush rug on the floor, a low shelf full of children's books of every kind, and in the corner, a 2-story dollhouse that was a work of art in itself. Wow, Emma whispered, eyes wide. But that was only the beginning. Want to see your rooms? Vincent asked, barely able to contain his excitement. He took Emma first. He opened the door to one of the guest rooms, completely transformed. The room was painted in soft purples and pinks. The walls had hand-painted murals of elephants. Elephants playing, elephants in families, elephants under stars. The bed was low and safe, shaped like a cloud, covered with soft sheets decorated with stars and moons. There was a dresser painted with flowers, a rocking chair in the corner, and shelves full of stuffed animals. But the centerpiece was an impressive collection of elephant plushies of every size, from tiny ones that fit in your hand to a giant nearly as big as Emma. Elephants! Emma shouted, running into the room with an energy she hadn't shown in days. She dove into the pile of plushies, laughing with the pure joy only small children can muster. Vincent felt his heart melt. How did you know about the elephants? Sophie asked, surprised. She mentioned it in the hospital, Vincent said. So I thought, why not? Then it was Sophie's turn. Vincent led her to the room next door and opened the door. If Emma's room was sweetness and dreams, Sophie's was adventure and possibility. The walls were a deep blue, decorated with glow-in-the-dark constellations. There was a large desk with drawers filled with school supplies, notebooks, colored pencils, markers, all high quality. A floor-to-ceiling bookcase packed with books, adventures, mysteries, sci-fi, fantasy, classics. The bed was a loft style, with a reading nook underneath complete with cushions and a lamp. And in one corner, a professional telescope. But what really captured Sophie's attention was the opposite wall. It was covered with a mural of the solar system, each planet painted in stunning detail. You did all this? For me, Sophie whispered, her voice breaking. For you, Vincent confirmed. Because you deserve to have a room. A place that's yours, where you're safe and can just be a kid. Sophie ran her fingers lightly over the solar system wall, as if afraid it might disappear if she touched it too hard. I've always wanted to learn about stars, she admitted softly. My mom used to say that when people died, they become stars. So every night I looked at the sky trying to find her. Vincent felt a lump in his throat. Then we'll learn about stars together, he said. And every clear night, we can use the telescope to look for your mom's star. What do you think? Sophie turned to him, tears running down her face. Why are you being so nice? She asked and there was such deep pain in her voice. I don't understand. Why do you care? No one else did. Why you? Vincent knelt in front of her, meeting her eyes. You want the truth? He asked, and she nodded. At first it was guilt, remorse for ignoring you that night. But now it's because, in 4 days, you and Emma have given me something I haven't had in decades. You've given me purpose. You've given me a reason to be better. You've given me a family. He paused. But more importantly, Sophie, I care because you are extraordinary. You're 8 years old and survived on your own while caring for your little sister for weeks. You're smart, strong, brave, and loyal. Anyone would be lucky to have you in their life. And I'm that lucky. So yes, I care. Very much. Sophie studied him for a long moment. Then slowly she hugged him. Thank you, she whispered. For coming back. For finding us. For everything. Vincent hugged her, feeling tears in his own eyes again. You don't have to thank me, he said. You saved me as much as I saved you. They stayed like that for a long moment. Then Emma appeared in the doorway, dragging the giant elephant plushie. Daddy, Sophie! Come see. There's a kitchen with real food. Vincent and Sophie laughed, wiping their tears. Let's go, Vincent said, holding out his hand to Sophie. She looked at his hand. Then, for the first time by her own choice, she took it. And together, they went to find Emma. That night, after the girls had dinner, a proper meal cooked by Rosa, who now stayed in the staff room, and took their baths, Vincent tucked them into bed. Emma fell asleep almost instantly, exhausted but happy, cuddling 3 elephant plushies. Sophie took longer. She was nervous, looking around her new room as if she expected it to vanish. Vincent? She called softly as he was leaving. Yes, will you? Will you be here in the morning? When I wake up. Vincent's heart broke again at how much fear she still carried. I'll be here, he promised. And the next morning, and the next, and every morning after that, always. Do you promise? I promise, Sophie thought for a moment. Okay, good night. Daddy? It was the first time she'd called him that. Vincent had to hold himself together not to cry right there. Good night, Sophie. Dream of the stars. He stepped out, leaving the door ajar and the hallway light on, just as Sophie had asked. Vincent went to his own room for the first time in days but couldn't sleep. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, processing how his life had changed completely in less than a week. 6 days ago, he was a rich, powerful, utterly empty man. Now he was the father of 2 orphaned, traumatized girls. And it was the scariest and most wonderful thing that had ever happened to him. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Margaret, his executive assistant. Mr. Harlow, next week's meetings have been rescheduled as requested. Everyone understands you're taking time for family matters. By the way, everyone at the office is rooting for you and the girls. Vincent smiled. He had sent an email to the whole company explaining the situation, not every detail, but enough. And the response had been overwhelmingly positive. Maybe people weren't as bad as he'd always thought. Or maybe he had just never given them the chance to show who they really were. Vincent was finally drifting off when he heard a sound. Small footsteps in the hallway. He got up and found Sophie standing in his doorway, clutching a book. "Sorry," she said. "I can't sleep. Could you read to me? My mom used to read to me every night and I miss it." "Of course," Vincent said immediately. "Come here." Sophie climbed onto his absurdly large king-size bed and snuggled beside him. She handed him the book. "Charlotte's Web," Vincent read the title. "Great choice." He began reading. His voice, usually so cold and professional, softened and warmed as he brought Wilbur and Charlotte's story to life. 10 minutes later, Sophie was fast asleep against him. Vincent carefully marked the page, set the book aside, and just watched her sleep. This amazing girl who had endured so much, yet still had the courage to trust again. He gently kissed the top of her head. "Good night, my brave girl," he whispered. "You're home now, and you're safe. Always." And for the first time in decades, Vincent Harlow fell asleep with a smile on his face and peace in his heart. Because finally, he was exactly where he was meant to be, at home, with his family. The first days were harder than Vincent could ever have imagined. He had thought that providing a beautiful home, food, safety, that all of that would be enough. But he quickly discovered that traumatized children need far more than luxury. They need patience, understanding, and someone willing to stay even when things get hard, and things did get very hard. The first crisis came on the third night. Vincent woke at 3 a.m. to screams. Terrible, desperate screams that froze his blood. He ran to Sophie's room and found her sitting up in bed, eyes wide but still asleep, screaming in pure terror. "Mom, no! Please, don't go! Don't leave me!" "Mom, Sophie!" Vincent called, trying to wake her. "Sophie, you're safe. It's just a nightmare." But she didn't hear him. She was trapped in her terror, reliving that horrible moment when she learned her mother had died. Rosa appeared in the doorway, already experienced with situations like this. "Don't shake her," she instructed calmly. "Talk to her, gently. Let her know she's safe." Vincent sat on the edge of the bed, forcing his voice to stay calm even as his heart broke. "Sophie, sweetheart, you're home. You're safe. I'm here. Emma's here. You're not alone. Your mom loved you so much, and she'd want you to know it's okay now. You're safe." He repeated those words like a mantra, his voice soft and steady. Slowly, so slowly, Sophie began to calm. Her screams faded to sobs. Her eyes finally focused, finding Vincent. "Vincent?" she whispered, confused, still caught between nightmare and reality. "I'm here," he said. "You had a bad dream, but it's over now. You're safe." And then Sophie did something that completely shattered Vincent's heart. She threw herself into his arms and cried. She cried with an intensity that went beyond tears, deep, racking sobs that shook her entire small body. "She's gone," Sophie whimpered against Vincent's chest. "My mom is gone and she's never coming back, and I miss her so much, and it hurts. It hurts so much." Vincent held her, his own tears falling silently. "I know," he whispered. "I know, sweetheart. And it's okay to feel that pain. It's okay to cry. Your mom was special, and you have every right to miss her." "But you said it's okay now," Sophie shouted, pulling away from him with sudden anger. "But it's not. Nothing is okay. My mom is dead, and I couldn't save her. I couldn't." Her face was twisted with pain and guilt. "Sophie, listen to me," Vincent said firmly, holding her shoulders and looking straight into her eyes. "What happened to your mom was not your fault. You were a child. You are a child. There was nothing you could have done. I should have been there," she cried. "I should have been with her. Maybe if I'd been there, she wouldn't have crossed that street. Maybe." "No," Vincent interrupted, his voice breaking with emotion. "Don't do that to yourself. Don't carry that guilt. Your mom wouldn't want that." "How do you know?" Sophie challenged, tears streaming down her face. "You didn't even know her." Vincent took a deep breath, knowing he needed to say the right thing. The right words could help her start to heal. The wrong ones could push her deeper into her pain. "You're right. I didn't know your mom," he said gently. "But I know you. And if she raised you to be as strong, as brave, as loving as you are, then she must have been an extraordinary woman. And extraordinary mothers don't want their children to carry guilt over things they can't control. They want their children to live. To be happy. To remember the love, not just the pain. Sophie stared at him, her breathing still uneven. But what if I forget her? She whispered. And there was so much fear in those words. What if, with time, I forget what her voice sounded like? Or her smell? Or the way she hugged me? Vincent felt a stab in his heart. Then we'll make sure you don't forget, he said. We'll talk about her. Anytime you want. We'll keep her memory alive through stories. And when you're ready, we can make something special. An album of memories. A garden in her honor. Whatever you want. Sophie looked at him for a long moment. Then, so quietly he almost didn't hear it, she said, I'm so scared. Of what, sweetheart? That you'll leave too. That I'll wake up one day and you'll have decided you don't want me. That I'm too complicated, too broken. And then I'll be alone again. Vincent felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. Sophie, look at me, he said, gently lifting her chin. Look into my eyes. She obeyed, her green eyes brimming with tears meeting his. You're not broken, Vincent said with fierce intensity. You're hurt. There's a difference. Broken things can't be fixed. Hurts can heal. And I will be here for every step of that healing. I promise you. I'll be here when you have nightmares. I'll be here when you're angry. I'll be here when you push me away because you're testing if I'm real. And I'll still be here, always. How can you promise that? Sophie asked, desperate to believe but terrified of being let down again. Because I'm hurt too, Vincent admitted, his voice raw with emotion. I spent my entire life building walls, pushing people away, pretending I didn't need anyone. And then you pounded on my car window that rainy night and shattered all those walls. You showed me I was empty, dead inside, and you gave me a chance to live again. He paused, tears now running down his own face. So no, Sophie, I'm not going anywhere, because you and Emma are my healing as much as I am yours. We're a family, and families stay together, no matter what. Sophie studied him, searching for any hint of a lie, but all she found was raw, honest truth. Slowly she moved back into his arms. Okay, she whispered. I'll try to believe you. That's all I ask, Vincent said, holding her. Just try. The rest will come with time. They stayed like that for a long while, until Sophie's breathing steadied and she began to drift off again. Vincent? She murmured sleepily. Yes. Thank you for not leaving me alone with the nightmare. Never, he promised. I will never leave you alone with your nightmares. He stayed with her until he was sure she was deeply asleep. Then, carefully, he went back to his room. But he couldn't sleep, because he realized something terrifying. He loved these girls with an intensity that scared him. He loved them so much that the mere idea of losing them, of failing them, made him feel physically ill. And that was new for him, a kind of vulnerable, frightening love. But it was beautiful, too. The following days brought more challenges. Emma, who at first seemed to be adjusting well, suddenly became glued to Vincent. She wouldn't let him out of her sight for even a second. If he went to the bathroom, she waited outside the door. If he went to another room, she followed. Daddy, don't go, she said every time he tried to leave. Stay. Dr. Morrison explained that it was normal. Emma is too young to fully understand what happened to her mother, she said during one of the therapy sessions. But she understands that important people can disappear. So she's clinging to you because she's terrified you'll disappear too. What do I do? Vincent asked, exhausted but determined to get it right. You do exactly what you're doing. You stay. You show her over and over that even when you go, you come back. Eventually, she'll start to believe it. But it will take time. Time. Everything took time. And patience and love. Things Vincent was learning for the first time in his life. There were beautiful moments, too. Like when Emma laughed for the first time. A real joyful laugh. Watching Vincent try to make pancakes and fail spectacularly. Daddy, you're terrible at cooking, she declared between giggles. I know, Vincent admitted, staring at the sticky disaster in the pan. But I'm trying. Sophie appeared in the kitchen, drawn by the laughter. What happened in here? It looks like a pancake exploded. Basically, yes, Vincent said. And then, to his absolute delight, Sophie laughed too. A real laugh that lit up her entire face. In that moment, flour in his hair and a wrecked kitchen around him, Vincent Harlow felt richer than in all his years of piling up millions. 2 weeks after the girls moved in, Patricia made her first unannounced visit. She rang the bell at 9 on a Saturday morning. Vincent opened the door barefoot, in sweatpants, something he'd never have worn before, an orange juice-stained t-shirt, courtesy of Emma, and completely messy hair. "Mr. Harlow," Patricia said, trying not to smile. "Or should I call you Vincent now?" "Please, come in," Vincent said, waving her inside. The penthouse looked different. There were toys scattered around the living room. Emma's drawing stuck to the fridge with magnets, stacks of books on the sofa, a half-built block castle on the rug. It was messy. It was chaotic. It was a home. "Where are the girls?" Patricia asked. "Sophie's in her room reading. Emma is probably building something with blocks." "Emma," he called. "We have company." Small feet pattered down the hallway and Emma appeared, stopping short at the sight of a stranger. She immediately ran to Vincent, hiding behind his legs. "It's okay, baby," Vincent said gently. "This is Ms. Reynolds. She's a friend. Remember we talked about her coming to visit sometimes?" Emma peeked around Vincent's legs, still hesitant. Patricia knelt to Emma's eye level. "Hi, Emma," she said softly. "You look much better than the last time I saw you at the hospital." Emma considered that, then said, "I have elephants now." "Really? How many?" Emma thought very seriously. "Lots. Want to see?" Before Patricia could answer, Emma took her hand and tugged her toward the bedroom. Vincent followed, surprised and proud to see Emma opening up like that. Over the next hour, Patricia observed. She watched Vincent with the girls, how he talked with them, how he laughed with them, how he hugged Emma when she showed off each of her stuffed elephants, how he encouraged Sophie to share the book she was reading. She watched a man completely different from the one she'd met at the hospital only 2 weeks earlier. Before leaving, Patricia asked to speak with Vincent privately. "Mr. Harlow." "Vincent," she said, and there was something in her voice. "I need to admit something. When you first offered to take these girls, I had doubts. Serious doubts. I thought maybe it was a whim or guilt, or that you'd quit when you realized how hard it is." She paused. "But I was wrong. Completely wrong. What I saw today was a father. A real father. Tired, a little overwhelmed, clearly learning as he goes, but a real father. Those girls love you, and you love them. That's obvious." Vincent felt tears sting his eyes. "So, does that mean... It means I'm going to recommend that temporary custody become permanent," Patricia said with a smile. "There's still legal process, of course. But based on what I've seen, these girls have found their home." "With you?" Vincent had to sit down, his legs suddenly weak. "Thank you," he managed. "Thank you for giving me this chance." "Don't thank me," Patricia said. "Thank Sophie for trusting you. And thank yourself for living up to that trust." After she left, Vincent stood for a long moment, processing. His daughters. They would truly be his daughters. "Vincent." Sophie's voice came from the hallway. He turned and saw her standing there, hugging a book. "Yes, sweetheart. I was thinking, and I wanted to ask something." "Anything." Sophie took a deep breath, clearly nervous. "When everything is official, when you're legally our dad, can we change our last names to Harlow?" Vincent felt like he'd been struck by lightning. You want to?" "Mitchell was my mom's last name," Sophie explained, tears in her eyes. "And I'll always honor that. She'll always be my mom, but Harlow would be our new beginning, our new family. And I want that. I want to be Sophie Harlow. If you want that too." Vincent crossed the room in 3 steps and hugged her tight. "I want that more than anything," he said, his voice thick. "More than anything in the world." And there, in that hug, Vincent Harlow realized something. He had spent 52 years chasing success, power, wealth, but only now, holding this brave girl in his arms, had he finally found what truly mattered. Family, love, home, and he was never going to let it go. 3 months later, Vincent's life was unrecognizable, but not everything was a fairy tale. The real storm was just beginning. Everything fell apart on an ordinary Tuesday in January. Vincent was at the office. He'd gone back to work part-time, always making sure to be home for dinner and to tuck the girls in, when he got a call that turned his blood to ice. "Mr. Harlow, this is Principal Chen from Sophie's school. I need you to come immediately. There's been an incident." Vincent's heart lurched. "Is Sophie okay? Is she hurt?" Physically, she's fine. But Mr. Harlow, she attacked another child. You need to come now. Vincent dropped everything and ran. 20 minutes later, he stepped into the principal's office and found Sophie in a chair, arms folded defensively, face streaked with tears but eyes blazing with fury. There were scratches on her hands. Her uniform was torn. What happened? Vincent asked, kneeling in front of her. Sophie turned her face away, refusing to look at him. Principal Chen, a stern middle-aged Asian woman, spoke up. Sophie physically attacked another student, Madison Parker, during recess. She shoved her, scratched her face and tried to pull her hair. It took 3 teachers to separate them. That doesn't make sense, Vincent said, glancing at Sophie. Sophie isn't violent. There must have been a reason. The reason, the principal cut in coolly, is irrelevant. Violence is not tolerated at this school. This is an elite institution, Mr. Harlow. We have standards. Something in the way she said it, as if Sophie were unworthy of being there, made anger rise in Vincent's chest. Sophie, he said gently, ignoring the principal. Look at me, sweetheart. Please. Slowly, Sophie turned her head. Her eyes were red, but the pain in them made Vincent's heart ache. What happened? I promise I won't be mad. I just need to understand. For a long moment, Sophie stayed silent. Then her voice came out small and broken. She said my mom died because God was punishing her. Said my mom must have been a bad person to die like that, and that me and Emma should have died too because we're just street trash nobody wants. The room went dead quiet. Vincent felt a rage so intense he had to breathe deeply to keep control. She said that? He asked, voice dangerously low. Miss Parker denies that version of events, the principal said quickly. I don't care if she denies it, Vincent shot back, his voice sharp as a blade. My daughter isn't a liar. And if another child said those vile things to her, then Sophie was defending herself. Mr. Harlow, physical violence is never the answer. And cruel bullying should never be tolerated. Vincent snapped, rising to his feet. Where were the teachers when this Madison was tormenting my daughter? Where were the adults who were supposed to protect her? Principal Chen visibly shifted in discomfort. Well, that is being investigated. Investigated? Vincent practically growled. My 8-year-old, Darn, who lost her mother just 5 months ago, was verbally attacked by another child and you're investigating. He took Sophie's hand. We're leaving. Now. Mr. Harlow, if you withdraw Sophie right now, this will be considered a voluntary expulsion. Vincent paused at the door and turned slowly. I don't care, he said with icy calm. Because I don't want my daughter at a school that punishes victims and protects aggressors. And since you seem to care so much about elite institutions, you should know I'm one of the school's largest donors. Or rather, I was. Consider my annual $500,000 donation canceled. Permanently. The principal's face went pale. Mr. Harlow, let's not be hasty. But Vincent was already walking out and Sophie at his side. They walked to the car in silence. Derek opened the door, immediately sensing something was wrong but wisely said nothing. As soon as the door closed, Sophie crumbled. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I know you told me not to fight, I know. But she kept saying those things about Mom and I couldn't stop and now I ruined everything and you're probably so disappointed in me and… Stop, Vincent said firmly. Sophie froze, shrinking back. Vincent took a breath, steadying himself. Sophie, look at me. She obeyed, tears streaking down her face. I'm not disappointed in you, Vincent said, his voice shaking with emotion. I'm proud of you. Sophie blinked, confused. What? You defended your mother's memory. You defended yourself and Emma. Yes, violence isn't ideal, and we'll talk about better ways to handle this. But you didn't act out of cruelty. You acted out of love, and I will never ever punish you for loving and protecting your family. He pulled her into a tight hug. Do you hear me? I'm on your side, always, no matter what. Sophie cried into him, her small fingers clutching his shirt like it was the only solid thing in the world. That girl was wrong, Vincent said fiercely. Your mother wasn't bad. She was heroic. She raised you to be strong and brave and amazing. And you and Emma aren't trash. You're my daughters, my precious girls. And anyone who says otherwise will answer to me. But now I don't have a school, Sophie hiccuped. Then we'll find a new one, Vincent said simply. A better one. One where you're treated with the respect you deserve. Finding a new school wasn't as simple as Vincent thought. Word got around, somehow, the story that the Millionaire's troubled orphan girl attacked a classmate for no reason made the rounds among Manhattan's elite schools. Door after door slammed shut. We're sorry, Mr. Harlow, but we have no openings at this time. Our wait list is full. We don't believe this would be a good fit. Each rejection felt like a knife in Vincent's chest. Worse, Sophie was hearing them. She knew she was being turned away. It's because of me, isn't it? She asked one night, her voice small. Nobody wants me because I caused trouble. No, Vincent said, pulling her into his lap despite her being 8. It's because those schools are idiots who can't recognize an amazing kid when they see one. But he could see the light dimming in Sophie's eyes. She was starting to believe she was too much trouble. Too broken, too unworthy. And that terrified him. Things got worse when Emma started regressing. She began wetting the bed again, something that had stopped weeks earlier. She started having panic attacks whenever Vincent stepped out of sight. She stopped eating properly. She's absorbing the tension at home, Dr. Morrison explained. Little kids are emotional sponges. Emma knows Sophie is hurting and it affects her too. Vincent was being crushed by the weight of it all. Work, 2 traumatized girls, school rejections, sleepless nights. He was exhausted, physically and emotionally drained. Then came the final blow. A week after the school incident, Vincent received an official notice. Madison Parker's parents were suing him and Sophie for assault and emotional distress. They were seeking $500,000 in damages. Vincent read the filing with growing disbelief. They claimed Sophie was violent and dangerous, and that Vincent was negligent in allowing a child with severe behavioral problems into a school with normal children. The anger Vincent felt was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. But worse than the anger was fear, because buried in the filing was a sentence that terrified him. We will also challenge Mr. Harlow's fitness as a foster parent, given his inability to control the child in his care. They were threatening to take Sophie and Emma away from him. That night, after putting the girls to bed, Vincent sat in his study and, for the first time in months, wondered if they might be better off without him. Maybe he wasn't good enough. Maybe he was failing them. Maybe Vincent. He looked up to see Sophie standing in the doorway, clutching her favorite stuffed elephant. I couldn't sleep, she said. Are you okay? You look sad. Vincent tried to smile. I'm okay, sweetheart, just tired. Sophie stepped into the room. Are you regretting it? She asked quietly. Adopting us? What? No, Vincent said, pulling her into a hug at once. Never. Why would you think that? Because I caused so many problems, Sophie said, tears starting to fall. Because of me, you had to leave work early. Because of me, you're being sued. Because of me, everything's messy and hard, and maybe that girl was right. Maybe me and Emma are just... Stop, Vincent said firmly, holding her face in his hands. Stop right now. Listen to me very carefully, Sophie Harlow. He used her new last name on purpose. You and Emma are the best things that have ever happened to me. Yes, it's hard sometimes. Yes, there are challenges. But you know what else there is. Laughter, joy, purpose, love. Before you, I was an empty shell. Now I'm a father. Your father, and I wouldn't trade that for anything in this world. But the lawsuit, it's just money and paperwork, Vincent said. And I have the best attorneys in the country. They're not taking you from me. I promise. I would fight to my last breath before I let that happen. Sophie studied him, searching for any hint of doubt. Do you promise? Even if it gets really hard. Especially if it gets really hard, Vincent said fiercely. Families don't give up on each other when things get tough. They fight together. And that's what we are, Sophie. A family. And families get through everything. Together. Sophie hugged him so hard he nearly lost his breath. I love you, Daddy, she whispered. It was the first time she'd said it. Daddy. Vincent felt tears spill down his face. I love you too, my brave girl. More than words can say. They stayed that way for a long time, drawing strength from each other. And in that moment, Vincent made a decision. He wasn't just going to fight this lawsuit. He was going to crush it. and he was going to protect his daughters from anyone who tried to hurt them, no matter the cost, because they were worth everything. The next morning, Vincent did something he'd never done before. He used his power and influence not to make money, but to protect his family. He hired not only lawyers but private investigators. And what they uncovered about the Parker family was enlightening. Turns out Madison wasn't an innocent victim. She had a history of bullying, multiple complaints from other parents, and her parents had previously threatened to sue the school when Madison was suspended for cruel behavior. They were professional litigants, and they'd picked the wrong target this time. Vincent compiled all the evidence and handed it to his attorneys with a simple instruction: crush this. Completely. More importantly, he finally found the right school for Sophie. It wasn't an elite institution. It was a smaller, warmer school that specialized in kids who had been through trauma. And when the principal, a warm black woman named Dr. Williams, met Sophie, she didn't see a problem child. She saw a survivor. "Sophie Harlow," she said with a genuine smile, "it will be an honor to have you at our school. Children who've been through what you have aren't troublemakers. They're warriors. And we honor warriors here." Sophie looked at Vincent with wide eyes, almost unable to believe it. "Really?" she whispered. "Really," Dr. Williams confirmed. "Welcome to the Riverside Academy family." For the first time in weeks, Sophie smiled. A real, brilliant, hopeful smile, and Vincent knew that no matter how many battles lay ahead, they would get through them. Because they were a family, and families stick together. Always. 6 months later, life had found a new rhythm. But the real test was still ahead. It all happened on a June morning that began like any other. Sophie was getting ready for school. Emma was eating breakfast. Vincent was reviewing a few documents while sipping coffee. Normal, peaceful, perfect. And then the phone rang. It was Patricia Reynolds, and there was urgency in her voice. "Vincent, I need you to come to my office. Now, and bring the girls." Vincent's stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Just come. Please, it's important." An hour later, Vincent was sitting in Patricia's office with Sophie and Emma at his side. Both girls were tense, sensing something was wrong. Patricia sat behind her desk, but she wasn't alone. A man was with her, around 40, blonde hair going gray, blue eyes. He was nervous, his hands trembling slightly. "Mr. Harlow, girls," Patricia began, her voice carefully controlled. "This is Robert Mitchell." The last name hit Vincent like lightning. Mitchell. The same last name Sophie and Emma had before they became Harlow. "No," Vincent said, his voice low and dangerous. "No, don't even think about it." Sophie squeezed Vincent's hand hard, her eyes wide with fear. Emma, not fully understanding, began to cry. "Vincent, please let me explain," Patricia said quickly. "There's nothing to explain," Vincent said, standing, instinctively placing himself between the man and his daughters. "These girls are mine, legally and officially. No one is taking them. I don't want to take them from you," the man, Robert, said, his voice thick. I just wanted to meet them." "Who are you?" Sophie suddenly shouted, rising to stand beside Vincent. "Why do you have my mom's last name?" Robert looked at her and tears filled his eyes. "Because," he said softly, "Sarah was my little sister. I'm your uncle, Sophie." And Emma's. The silence that followed was deafening. "No," Sophie said, shaking her head violently. "No, my mom said we didn't have family. That we were alone." "You're lying!" "Your mom and we had a falling out," Robert said, tears now running freely down his face. "Years ago. For stupid, prideful reasons. And when I finally wanted to make things right, it was too late. She had died." He drew a shaky breath. "I spent months trying to find you. Social services told me you were in foster care, but they wouldn't give me information. And then, 3 weeks ago, I finally got a lawyer who tracked you down, and I found out you were here, with Mr. Harlow." Vincent felt the ground vanish beneath his feet. "Patricia," he said, dangerously calm, "tell me he has no legal rights. Tell me he can't take them." Patricia let out a heavy sigh. As a blood relative, technically he could contest the adoption. But Vincent, he doesn't want to do that. I just want to meet them," Robert cut in, looking directly at Vincent. "I lost my sister. I lost years I could have had with her. I don't want to lose my nieces too, but I can see how much they love you, how much you love them. I didn't come to destroy that. Then why did you come? Vincent demanded. Because they deserve to know they have more family, that they aren't completely alone in the world. And because I need to make peace with the mistakes I made. Sophie was trembling beside Vincent. You were my mom's brother? She asked, her voice small and afraid. I was, Robert confirmed. Sarah was 3 years younger than me. When we were kids, we were inseparable. She was my best friend. Then why did you abandon her? Sophie exploded, all her rage and pain boiling over. Why weren't you there when she needed you? Why did she have to work herself to death while you... She couldn't finish, sobs overtaking her. Robert closed his eyes, accepting each word as the punishment he deserved. Because I was a proud, selfish fool, he said, voice breaking. Sarah wanted to marry your dad. I didn't approve. I thought he wasn't good enough for her. We fought, terrible things were said, and then we stopped talking. He opened his eyes, meeting Sophie's. When your dad abandoned you, I didn't even know. When Sarah was struggling alone, working 2 jobs, raising you both by herself, I wasn't there. And when she died, his voice shattered completely. When she died, I lost my chance to say I was sorry, to say I loved her, to be there for her. But maybe I can still be here for you. If you let me. Sophie looked at Vincent, confusion and fear in her eyes. What happens now? She whispered. Do we have to go with him? Do we have to leave you? No, Vincent said fiercely, kneeling in front of her and Emma. You're not going anywhere. Not unless you want to. You're my daughters, legally and completely. No one can change that. He looked at Robert, his eyes blazing with a protective fury that could melt steel. And if you try to take them from me, I will fight you with every resource I have. I will destroy you legally, financially, and personally. Understood? Robert nodded slowly. I understand. And I won't try. I promise. I just wanted them to know they have family. And maybe us over time, we could get to know each other. Vincent looked at Sophie. The decision was hers. Sophie was silent for a long time, tears sliding down her cheeks. Then in a trembling voice, she asked, Do you have pictures? Of my mom when she was a kid. Robert nodded quickly, pulling out his phone with shaking hands. I do, hundreds. He held the phone out to Sophie. On the screen was a photo of 2 children, a boy about 10 and a girl maybe 7, laughing together on a swing. Sophie gasped. She looks like me, she whispered. You're the spitting image of her at that age, Robert said, his voice full of emotion. She would be so proud of the brave young girl you've become. Sophie touched the screen gently, as if she could somehow touch her mother through the image. I want to know about her, she said at last. I want to hear stories. I want to know what she was like as a kid, but she looked at Vincent, gripping his hand tight. But Vincent is my dad now, and nothing's going to change that. If you want to be in our life, you have to accept that. You have to accept him. Robert looked from Sophie to Vincent, then back to Sophie. I accept it, he said. Completely. Mr. Harlow, I see what you've done for them. I see that you love them. And I'm grateful. Truly grateful. I'm not here to replace you. I'm here to be their uncle. If they'll let me. Vincent studied the man carefully. He searched for any sign of deceit, of hidden motives, but all he saw was genuine remorse and a desperate desire to make things right. All right, Vincent said at last. We can try, slowly. Supervise visits first. And that's a big if, you prove you can be a positive presence in their lives, then we can discuss more. Thank you, Robert said, clearly relieved. Thank you. I promise I won't let you down. You're damn right you won't, Vincent said, his voice still hard. Because if you hurt these girls in any way, physically or emotionally, I will make sure you regret it for the rest of your life. Robert nodded, understanding the threat for what it was, a promise from a father guarding his young. The months that followed were strange and complicated. Robert visited once a week, always with Vincent present. He brought photos of the girl's mother. He told stories from her childhood. He shared memories that Sophie drank in like water in the desert. And slowly, very slowly, Sophie began to trust him. Not as a father. She already had a father, but as an uncle, as a living connection to the mother she'd lost, Emma, younger and more easily adaptable, accepted Robert more quickly. She called him Uncle Bobby and often asked him to come play, but the real turning point came 3 months after the first meeting. It was Sophie's birthday, her 9th. Vincent had planned a big party at home with her new friends from Riverside, and Robert showed up with a gift that changed everything. It was a box, old, wooden, with carved initials, S.M., Sarah Mitchell. "This belonged to your mom," Robert said, his hands trembling as he handed it to Sophie. "She always said one day she'd give it to you when you were old enough. And I kept it for that day." Sophie opened the box with shaking hands. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed for Sophie when you're older. Letters Sarah had written to her daughter before she died, never knowing she wouldn't live to deliver them herself. Sophie picked up the first letter, her hands shaking so much she could barely hold it. "My dear Sophie," she read aloud, tears already streaming. "If you're reading this, it means I'm no longer there, and my heart breaks just thinking about that." Her voice faltered. Vincent knelt beside her, wrapping an arm around her. "Do you want me to read it?" he offered gently. Sophie shook her head. "No, I need to hear her words, even if it hurts." She took a deep breath and continued. "But I want you to know, wherever I am, I will always be with you. In the stars you love so much, in the wind that tousles your hair, in the laughter that lights up every room. You are my greatest gift, Sophie, my reason to keep fighting, and even if I'm not there physically, my love will be. Always. Be brave, my girl. Be kind, be yourself, and know that you were loved. Oh, how you were loved. Your mom, forever, Sarah." The silence that followed was broken only by Sophie's sobbing, and then something surprising happened. Sophie turned and hugged Robert. "Thank you," she cried against him. "Thank you for keeping this for me. Thank you for bringing my mom back to me, in a way." Robert hugged her, his own tears falling. "She loved you both more than anything," he said. "And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I wasn't there." "But you're here now," Sophie said, pulling back and wiping her tears. "And that matters." She looked at Vincent, then back at Robert. "I have 2 fathers now," she said. "Vincent, who saved me and loves me, and my mother's love, which will never die. And now I have you too, as family, as an uncle, and I think it's okay to have all of you." Vincent felt his heart overflow. This girl, this incredible, resilient child, had faced loss, trauma, rejection, and pain. And she could still open her heart. She could still forgive. She could still love. She was stronger than he would ever be. And in that moment, Vincent realized something profound. He hadn't saved Sophie and Emma. They had saved him. They taught him how to love again, to feel again, to live again. They had turned him from an empty shell into a real man, a real father, and he would spend the rest of his life being worthy of that gift. That night, after all the guests had left and the girls were asleep, Vincent was in his study when he heard footsteps. Sophie and Emma appeared in the doorway, still in their pajamas. "We couldn't sleep," Sophie said. "Can we stay with you a little?" "Always," Vincent said, opening his arms. Both girls curled up against him on the big sofa. "Vincent," Sophie said after a moment. "Yeah? Do you remember that night in the rain? When I banged on your car window?" "I remember every second," Vincent said softly. "I was so scared that night," Sophie admitted. "I thought Emma was going to die, that I'd failed her, that it was all over." She paused. "But then you came back. And I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like God heard my prayers after all. Like he sent exactly who we needed exactly when we needed him." Vincent felt tears sting his eyes. "You know what's funny?" he said. "I spent my whole life not believing in destiny, or purpose, or anything beyond numbers and money. But now I do. Because you didn't come to me by accident. You came to save me, as much as I saved you. So it was destiny?" Emma asked sleepily. "It was love," Vincent said. "The kind of love that changes everything. The kind that saves lives. The kind that makes a family where there used to be only loneliness." Sophie snuggled closer. "I love you, Daddy," she whispered. "I love you too, Daddy," Emma echoed. "And I love you both," Vincent said, his voice breaking with emotion. More than all the stars in the sky. More than all the words there are. You're my whole world. And there, in that room, with his 2 daughters drifting to sleep in his arms, Vincent Harlow understood the final truth. He had spent 52 years building an empire, but only in the last 10 months had he built a home. And that was worth more than all the money in the world. 2 years later, rain fell over Manhattan just like that October night. But everything, absolutely everything, was different now. Vincent stood at the penthouse window, watching drops drum against the glass, when he felt small arms wrap around his waist. "Dad, are you thinking about that night again?" Sophie asked. She was 10 now, taller, more confident, but with the same piercing green eyes. Vincent smiled, turning to hug her. "How can you tell?" "Because you always look at the rain like that," she said. "With that look, like you're remembering something important." "The most important night of my life," Vincent admitted, kissing the top of her head. "The night I almost made the biggest mistake I could make. The night everything changed." Emma, now 5 and incredibly chatty, came running from the kitchen, holding a drawing. "Daddy, look what I made at school." "It's our family." Vincent took the drawing, and his heart tightened with emotion. There he was, drawn ridiculously tall with a big smile. Sophie beside him, holding his hand. Emma on the other side. And in the background, an ethereal figure painted in soft colors, Sarah, their mother, like a guardian angel watching over them all. And in the corner, in careful letters, "My family is my sky." "It's perfect," Vincent said, his voice thick. "I'm putting it on the fridge with the others." "No, Daddy," Emma protested. "This one's special. It has to go on the wall." "Then on the wall it goes," Vincent promised. Later that night, after dinner, now cooked by Vincent, who'd learned to be a reasonably good cook over the last 2 years, there was a knock at the door. Robert Mitchell arrived with his wife, Jennifer, and their 2 kids, 12-year-old Marcus and 9-year-old Lily. Yes, Robert was married. He had a family, and over the last 2 years, the 2 families had blended beautifully. Sophie and Lily were now best friends. Emma adored Marcus, who treated her like an annoying but beloved little sister. And Jennifer had become a maternal presence for the girls, not replacing Sarah, but complementing her memory. "We're here," Robert announced. "I brought the projector and the movies." It was tradition now, every Friday night, the 2 families met for movie night. Sometimes at Vincent's, sometimes at Robert's. While the kids argued over what to watch, Vincent and Robert stood on the balcony, watching the rain. "You know," Robert said, 2 years ago I was terrified to meet you. I figured you'd hate me, that you'd shut me out of the girls' lives." 2 years ago I probably would have, Vincent admitted, but the girls taught me something I never knew before. "What?" "That love doesn't shrink when you share it. It multiplies. Sophie and Emma don't love me less because they love you, and you being in their lives doesn't make me any less their father. In fact, it makes our family stronger." Robert discreetly wiped away a tear. "Thank you, Vincent, for being the man I wasn't, for saving the girls when I didn't even know they needed saving." "They saved me too," Vincent said simply, "more than you'll ever know." That night, after the Mitchells left and the girls were ready for bed, Sophie came into Vincent's room with something in her hands. "Dad, there's something I need to show you." It was a school essay. Title, "My Hero." Vincent started reading and had to sit down. Most kids write about firefighters or superheroes when they talk about their heroes. But my hero is my dad, Vincent Harlow. He doesn't wear a cape. He has no superpowers. But he did something no superhero could do. He came back. 2 years ago, when my little sister was dying and I was desperate, I asked a man in a fancy car for help. And he ignored me. He drove away. In that moment, I lost faith in adults. I lost faith in people. But then something miraculous happened. That man couldn't forget. He came back. He looked for us. And when he found us, 2 scared, hungry, broken girls, he didn't run. He stayed. He took us to the hospital, gave us a home, gave us love. And most important, he stayed. Even when I was difficult, even when I had nightmares, even when other people said I was too much trouble, he stayed. My dad always says we saved him. But the truth is he saved us first. He saved us from loneliness, from fear, from believing we weren't worthy of love. Today, when I look back at that rainy night, I don't feel angry anymore. I feel grateful, because that night, scary as it was, led me to my dad, led me to my family. Vincent Harlow is my hero not because he's rich or powerful, but because when he had the chance to do the right thing, even though it was hard, even though it changed his whole life, he chose love. He chose us, and that's what real heroes do. Vincent finished with tears streaming freely down his face. Sophie, this is... It's true, she said simply. Every word. I got an A+ on it, by the way. Vincent laughed through his tears, pulling her into a tight hug. You know I'm the lucky one, right? You and Emma are the real heroes of this story. I think we're heroes together, Sophie said. You saved us. We saved you, and we save each other every day just by being a family. Much later, when both girls were asleep, Vincent sat in his office looking at a framed photo on his desk. It wasn't a business photo, not an award or professional achievement. It was a picture of the three of them, him, Sophie, and Emma, taken on the day their adoption was finalized. Sophie was holding the adoption certificate, smiling through happy tears. Emma was in Vincent's arms, making a silly face. And Vincent was smiling in a way he never had before, with pure, genuine joy. His phone buzzed. A message from Derek, his driver, now more friend than employee. Mr. Harlow saw a Forbes piece about you today. From empty empire to empire of the heart, how Vincent Harlow found his true purpose. Congrats. The girls must be proud, Vincent smiled. Yes, the media had picked up the story. Not the whole thing, he protected many private details, but enough. And surprisingly, his company was doing better than ever. Turns out when you become a better person, you become a better leader too, he replied. They're my real success, Derek. Everything else is just a bonus. That night, unable to sleep, Vincent returned to the window, watching the rain finally ease. Then he heard footsteps, 2 sets. Sophie and Emma appeared, each holding her favorite blanket. Nightmares? Vincent asked gently. No, Sophie said, and we just missed you. Vincent smiled, sitting on the couch and opening his arms. Both girls nestled against him, one on each side. Daddy? Emma asked sleepily. Yes, my love. Do you think Mommy Sarah can see us? From heaven. Vincent looked up toward the ceiling, as if he could see through it to the stars beyond. I think she can, he said softly. And I think she's proud of you. So proud. And proud of you too, Sophie added, for taking care of us, for loving us. Vincent felt tears burn his eyes again. He seemed to cry a lot lately, but they were good tears. Tears of joy, of gratitude, of love. You know what's funny, he said. I spent 50 years of my life chasing success, thinking I needed more money, more power, more everything. And then 2 girls knocked on my car window on a rainy night, and everything changed. How did it change? Emma asked. It changed because you showed me what really matters. It's not how much money you have, or how big your house is, or how many people know your name. It's about loving and being loved. It's about showing up. It's about making a difference in someone's life. It's about family. He kissed the top of each of their heads. You two gave me something money could never buy. You gave me purpose. You gave me love. You gave me a reason to be better. And I'll spend the rest of my life being grateful for that rainy night when a brave girl wouldn't give up. When she kept asking for help until someone finally listened, Sophie looked at him with those wise beyond her years eyes. You know what I learned, Dad? What? That sometimes people make mistakes. Big ones. Like you did that night when you ignored us. But what matters isn't the mistake. It's what you do after. And you came back. You did the right thing. And that made all the difference. Vincent hugged her tighter. You've made me a better man, he whispered. A father. A real person. And I love you more than all the words in the world could ever say. We love you too, Dad, both girls said in unison. And there, on that rainy night, so similar yet so different from the night 2 years before, Vincent Harlow finally grasped the full truth. He didn't save Sophie and Emma that night. They saved him. And together they saved each other every day. Because that's what families do. They save, they heal. They love, always. 5 years later. Sophie was 15 now, a brilliant teenager planning to study medicine to help kids like Emma and me used to be. Emma was 10, still obsessed with elephants, but now with science too. And Vincent was 62, but he looked younger than he had at 52. Joy does that to people. On that particular day, a sunny fall day, they were at a charity event Vincent organized every year, an event for kids in vulnerable situations, for orphans, for children on the streets. And every year Vincent told his story, the real story of how two girls changed his life. 7 years ago, he told the packed audience, "I was the richest, most miserable man in New York. I had everything money could buy and nothing that truly mattered. And then, on a rainy night, a little girl banged on my car window asking for help. And I ignored her. I drove away." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "That decision almost cost me everything. It almost cost two extraordinary girls their lives. But thank God I got a second chance. And this time, I did the right thing." Sophie stood beside him on stage now, holding his hand. "My dad says we saved him," she told the microphone, her voice clear and strong. "But the truth is we saved each other. He gave us a home. We gave him a family. He taught us we were worthy of love. We taught him how to love. And together we became something stronger than any of us could be alone." The audience was in tears. Then Emma hopped onto the stage, unscripted but very her, and grabbed the mic. "And we have elephants," she announced proudly. "Lots of elephants." The audience broke into laughter through their tears. Vincent pulled both daughters into his arms, even though Sophie was nearly as tall as he was now, and whispered so only they could hear, "You two are my whole world. Always have been. Always will be." "We know, Dad," Sophie whispered back. "We know." And as the three walked off the stage together, a family built not by blood, but by choice, by love, by second chances. Vincent looked upward and whispered to the stars, "Thank you, Sarah, for raising such extraordinary girls, for giving me the chance to love them. I promise I'll take care of them forever." And somehow Vincent swore he felt a gentle breeze, even inside a closed hall, as if Sarah were answering, "I know. And thank you for coming back. And you who stayed to the very end of this moving story. If you were touched by the journey of Vincent, Sophie, and Emma, if you cried, laughed, and felt every moment of this incredible transformation, smash that like down below, and tell me in the comments, which part hit you hardest? Was it when Sophie knocked on the car window? When Vincent came back to find them? Or that final moment when they officially became a family? Subscribe to the channel and ring the bell because there's an emotional story here every week, stories that will make you believe in the power of love, redemption, and second chances. And if you needed a sign today, this is it. It's never too late to do the right thing. It's never too late to come back. It's never too late to choose love. Thank you so much for watching to the end. You're amazing. Binge the other stories on the channel and let's keep this journey of emotion going together. Big hug to your heart, and see you in the next story.